Trauma can vary depending on um, what happened to you. Some people have trauma that others may look at and say, hey, that's not that traumatic. But we should never judge a person's trauma, because what's trauma to me may not be trauma to you. So always understand that trauma could mean so many different things. The other thing that I want to point out is triumph. Triumph can mean different things for people as well. Triumphant doesn't mean that the person is wealthy or that the person is some sort of superstar or have some sort of level of fame. A triumph could simply mean I'm alive. I survived. I'm still here. And my soul is smiling. That is triumphant for so many of us. I know it is for me. I'm not wealthy. I'm not a superstar. I'm not any of those things. But the trauma that I suffered earlier in parts of my life, I've had pockets of trauma, and that I will talk about throughout this project. But for me, triumphant just means I'm here and able to talk to you all with joy in my heart about what we're doing. Healing women through the sharing of our stories is a big deal. And we're going to see how much of a big deal it is throughout this project. I have some really big plans. I'm going to be filming. I'm going to be doing some marketing for this project. We are going to get the attention of Oprah Winfrey. We are going to get Viola Davis interested in this project. We are going to get Shania Twain. We're going to get Mary J. Blige. We're going to get Taraji P. Henson. We are going to have some amazing women championing, is that a word? Championing for this project. Watch what I tell you. So before I bring in our guest for tonight, I wanted to also say, if you are a woman who has gone through trauma and you'd like to share your story with me, please inbox me, email me, or go on the website and sign up. It's www.trauma2Triumph.com. Or you can email me, and the email address is info@trauma2Triumph.com. Or you can DM me. I just want you to feel comfortable that you can share your story with me, and we will heal the lives of so many people by sharing our stories of trauma. So tonight's guest, I'm really excited about. She's an amazing woman, and she has an amazing story. Her journey is very, very inspiring. So I'm going to bring into our Instagram Live Rochelle Wilson, and you're going to see why I say she's so super amazing. Hang on one second. Here we go. I did it correctly. So if I did it right, she should be on the screen in a few seconds. We are touching and agreeing how amazing this project is going to be. Yes, we are going to touch and agree.
Yes. Yes.
Hello, beautiful.
Hi, beautiful. Hi, Terry.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so
You look
excited.
well.
Thank you. You too.
I haven't seen you in person in so long, so I'm really, really excited. I was telling my husband how excited I was to catch up with you tonight and just to have you on board as a part of this amazing project, because, you know, it is near and dear to my heart. When God put this on my heart, I said, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And he said, yes, you do. You have so many women who connect with you. This is him talking to me. You have so many women who connect with you, who relate to you. They feel like I'm either their aunt, their sister, their BFF, their cousin that they never knew. It's always something like that. And so I've been able to tap into that side of me and use it to share my stories with these amazing women. And together, through the sharing of our stories, we will heal millions of women of all ethnicities and all backgrounds and all age groups.
Absolutely.
Touching and agreeing.
Yes, in Jesus' name.
Yes.
And it is. Yes.
I'm so happy to have you. Let's get started, Rochelle, by just talking a little bit about who you are today, what's going on in your life at this moment, and then we'll take it back and we'll talk about your journey.
Well, listen, I'm excited to share my journey. When you asked me to just kind of connect with you by way of this time, for me, it was really about creating a space so that those that don't know me, that are part of your platform, could get an opportunity to know me. I think sometimes people see the success of a person and they judge them and they don't really know the backstory. And so I've been kind of that person where people will look and say, okay, you know, she's a first lady, she's with her husband, she's doing all these things, and life is perfect. Life is not perfect for me. And so, you know, right now I stand as a mother of five, a first lady, executive pastor of another level church. I'm an educator, I'm an entrepreneur. My husband and I, we run a multi-site dry cleaning chain. But I tell you, I could not have been at that place if I didn't go through some things that I went through. I absolutely help women. I transform women. I transform men. And I've done some amazing work. But that work is done because I'm able to stand on the shoulders of some very pressing times of my life. And so
Yes, ma'am.
um, that's why I do what I do. It's because I want to create an opportunity to show other women and men how you can move past anything that will come up against you, anything that will try to come up against what God will have for you. So I'm here by way of some pressing times that we'll talk through, but I'm really excited because God has given me an opportunity to really bless people. And so I feel like I'm a blessing to be a blessing.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful for your yes. I really and truly am. And thank you for giving us, catching us up to speed with where you are today. So let's take it back some years. Let's go back to the first time that you can remember, Rochelle, when you feel like trauma entered your life.
Well, you know, what's interesting about trauma is I think people think that at some point you are removed from trauma. And I think that's how we kind of set ourselves up. Trauma, by definition, is just a disturbing experience. It's something that is distressing. And when you think about trauma, so many of us experience traumatic episodes on a daily basis. But for me, I can recall my trauma starting when I was really, really young, when I was probably, you know, 6 or 7, between 6, 7, and the age of 8, when it was at that time where I really knew that something was happening in my house with my mother. My mother was struggling with drug addiction. I saw my mother go from being this very beautiful, desired woman by so many to this, we couldn't even identify who she was because somehow the thing that was feeding her and pumping her up became the very enemy that almost took her life. And so she went from being this beautiful woman to just, I mean, really struggling with substance abuse. And it was at that time where I saw myself just in a bubble. I was in a bubble because I was the only child, but I was in a bubble because no one was taking care of me.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, taking care of myself, and at that point trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to school today? Like, who's getting me dressed? I mean, I'm talking about from that age, I was getting myself ready for school, dressing myself to go to school, walking to school by myself. My mother never attended any parent teacher conferences or anything like that, so I was pretty much self-sufficient. And then I would go home and maybe eat dinner or something like that. But then I lived in a home where it was kind of the place where all of the drugs and alcohol and rock and roll was taking place. And
Yeah.
so I saw everything that a little girl should not see. And honestly, I can't even tell you how I'm even in a space where I can operate the way that I operate because my eyes were so tainted and my ears were so tainted. And I thank God. I
Mm.
owe it to my relationship with God that really kept me on the straight and narrow and kept me in a space where I didn't do the things that I saw. But I saw everything. You know, my father wasn't there. And so my mother was just from man to man. And it was like, well, what is happening? And so now I'm 9 and now I'm 10 and I'm in school and I'm not the best dressed because my mother can't afford to buy me clothes. And so now I'm the girl in the community that's being bullied because I don't have all the fancy clothes that other kids have. And I'm dark skinned. So then that's when I started experiencing, right, colorism in my,
Mm.
right? And so those are some of the conversations that I'm starting to have now as a 47-year-old woman, how colorism existed in the Black community when I was like 8 or 9. Right. And those are some things that I really had to struggle with for a very long time. It wasn't until I was probably like 39 that I was able to look into the mirror and say, Rochelle, you're beautiful. And it was because of that trauma. And so as I began to just unpack some of the issues in my life, I started understanding that I was doing certain things because my mother rejected me, my father wasn't there, and I didn't feel good enough. And so what ended up happening, it started to cause me to be an overachiever, right? And if you don't really unpack trauma, money doesn't deal with trauma. It really just gives you a vehicle to exacerbate the pain that's a byproduct of the trauma. And so
I'm
as
so
I,
glad you said that. Mm.
yes, I mean, that's what it does, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I at 15 now, I'm looking for love in all the wrong places. My mother is now really sinking, and sinking sand. And I'm literally taking care of her and my grandmother at 15 years old. I mean, I wasn't prepared, but I did the best I could. And so here I was. I had this baby who also had a disability, and I was faced with one decision, and that was, what are you going to do to create a life for him that looked different for you? I was making all of my own educational decisions, and I decided to drop out of high school because it was
Mm.
too much for me. And it was this individual that said, listen, you need to go back to school and you really need to create an opportunity for him that you didn't have. And so I went back to school, and education became a key for me, a key to at least put me in an environment by which I could begin to unpack my trauma. Me going to George Washington University didn't help. It exacerbated that because now I was starting to deal with the trauma that comes from when you are an African American, you are a person of color in environments where you are the minority. And so I
Mm.
would be in classes where it's like 2 African Americans and everyone else doesn't look like me. And so I started to see inequity, right? Every single day I had a front row seat to inequity and racism and discrimination, but I
Wow.
fought through it. I pushed through it. I recently took my children to my college campus and I showed them how it literally took me 2 hours to get to school every single day when I was in college. I took the train for 45 minutes to go downtown DC, and then another 45-minute bus ride, and then a 15-minute walk from the bus to the campus. And I said, by
Mm.
the time I graduated from college, I couldn't even appreciate the graduation because I was exhausted by the commute. There were days where I went to college and I had holes in my shoes, my feet were wet, but I persevered. And so the perseverance really helped me, honestly, to really get to a place where I could see my dreams become reality as I was unpacking my own trauma as a young adult.
You,
Habit.
what you just said, I'm still processing because I'm just trying to imagine being 15 in those circumstances. And I just still can't even wrap my mind around what you had to endure. Did you
It
have
was
siblings?
I didn't. I did not on my mother's side. So I was the only child. And I remember, my grandmother had spina bifida, so she couldn't walk. And I was like 7 years old, 9 years old, walking my grandmother across the street to the hair salon because everyone else was doing whatever they were doing with their drugs. And the police would come in my house. And, I was holding drugs for the drug dealers and trying to protect my family. And I think that's why now I'm such I always think about the end in mind, and sometimes that can create unnecessary anxiety because I'm always planning out what can happen because I've always seen so many things happen negatively. And so I try to get in front of those things. But there were days where the police would come in my house and they would lock people up, and, I'm flushing drugs down the toilet, and you know, I'm watching them come, and I'm like, they're coming, they're coming. But I remember seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. And I remember I got baptized at 8. And I thank God for churches. That's why, as a first lady, I'm always proactive around activities that can bring the community in, because it was Vacation Bible School that introduced me to Christ. And I know now that it was Holy Spirit, but there was something brewing on the inside of me. And I said, if I can get to that church, there's something in that church that has more power than my family. And I asked my mother, could I get baptized? And she said yes. And the night of my baptism, that was probably the first time that she had ever stepped in a church. And after that, every Sunday I would dress myself. I don't know what I looked like because everyone was giving my mother clothes for me because at that time she didn't have much money. So I would go in the bags and I would put out outfits. And then I would just go to church and I began to like knock on doors and invite my neighbors to church. And so I've been in church for a very long time, and the church has been a saving place for me. And I thank God for just having his hand in my life because I don't know where I would be if I didn't have God, even in my imperfections, even in the things that I did as a result of my trauma, you know, the
Right.
rejection of my mother, my father not being there. I just pushed through, and it was through the grace of God.
Now, did you have moments throughout those times growing into a young woman where you yearned for your dad? Like how did that go for you?
I did. So my mom was dating a guy who I actually called my stepfather. He was there pretty consistently, but I still wanted my father. My father
Yeah.
also struggled with alcoholism, but he was a functional alcoholic. So he had a great job. And so he just came and he went. You know, I just remember he would come and he would kidnap me, and my mother would have to go and get me. And I'm number 7 out of 9 on my father's side. So
Oh, wow.
what situation we were dealing with. And so I just didn't know why he would say to my mother that he would never take care of me because she was with someone. And so I remember when I was pregnant, I went to a payphone after school and I called them. And he said, you know, you get ready to have the baby now. Don't call me. You should have called me when you first got pregnant. And my dad lives in this area. And I remember saying, wow. So at that point, my dad rejected me. And then when I had the baby's father rejected me. And then he was murdered before my son turned 1. And so here I was in high school trying to unpack all of that. But through the grace of God, I still got through. But it doesn't mean that it didn't make me a little dysfunctional. I know that sometimes we don't think that trauma has those kind of effects because we just say, I'm okay. But saying you okay doesn't negate the fact that one person trying to manage all of that emotionally is just not normal. But I did. And I started dating a lot of older guys, and I subsequently understood that was because I was probably looking for a father figure. And
Yep.
so, again, I think my relationship with God has just allowed me to be open to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and receiving the correction.
But what I'm seeing and hearing is that you were chosen a long time ago. Like there was something that he put inside of you a long time ago. A long
Yeah,
time ago.
it feels like that, and sometimes you have to sit in all of that and not understand why. But then when God, I thank you, I got through it. I mean, like, I could have had AIDS. I mean, I got pregnant the first time I had sex, the very first time. I wasn't out there just
Girl.
being sloppy and irresponsible. I just wanted someone to love me, you know.
Hmm.
And then you just get to a place where you just cave in, and that's what I did. And here I was with this baby. I had to get welfare. I dropped out of high school, went back to school. My mother and I had a major rift because I had to make the tough decision to take her name off it. I never forget. She was so upset with me because I took her name off of the food stamps. I took her name off of the check because I was like, we're not going to have anything. And especially with this baby, I got to take this check. And so it started creating a very tense relationship with my mother.
Hmm.
So not only was I taking care of her, but she acted like she didn't like me because I had to make decisions for my son. So I was always living in an environment where I was working overtime to try to take care of a child, prove I was, acceptable to my mother, who was really upset with me about the decisions that she made. But I just kept honoring her because that's what the word said. I still honor my mother today. I still honor
Mm.
my mother.
Today, you still honor her.
Honor her through it all, through the drug addiction. My mom has had breast cancer, a cocaine-induced stroke, and most recently, before the pandemic, stage 4 oral cancer. And I literally spent days at the hospital with her because I believe that there's a reward for honoring the word of God. And so, I just have to keep plowing through. I know how to work through my issues with her. I know when those things she says doesn't make me feel well, and I'm able to communicate those things, I know how to stay away. But I know God is pleased, and so that's the priority for me.
And so that brings tears to my eyes simply because honoring his word is everything. You know what I mean? No
Yeah,
matter what your circumstances
yeah,
are, like you said, like most normal people, they wouldn't be at their mom's side right now. They would not still be honoring their parent after what you went through and feeling abandoned and having to basically raise yourself.
yeah,
But you understand the reward in honoring what he says, and that's what you're supposed to do.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so that just makes my heart so glad. I am so happy to hear that. And I wanted other people to hear and understand that, because human beings have a really difficult time
yeah,
with honoring his word when
yeah.
you're hurt or
When
when
you're,
someone has done something to you, how to handle that person afterwards. It's tough for a lot of human beings.
it's very tough, and I know you appreciate that because you love your mom. I watch you honor your mother and love your mother, and it's so precious. And I think if you have a mom and you have a great relationship with her, cherish that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of nights where I go to sleep and I'm like, I just don't have it, you know. But what I do is I try to become that to my girls, and I try to give my girls what I don't have, and know that God some way will fill that void, and He will make it, you know, well. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful. But you're right, it's hard. But what I understand is that parents only do what they can do. My mother was only able to give me what she only was able to give me. Most of us still don't know the backstory of the history of abuse and trauma in our bloodline. Most people, when they show up for their jobs, they've had a traumatic episode at home the night before. Trauma is so intense. And that's why I believe now in mindfulness activities and things that really help declutter your mind and get you to a space where you really can move forward. Because now, right, I can celebrate all the things that God has done. I can be a blessing to my mother, and I can bless her. And she, you know, it took my mother probably said she was proud of me when I was 35 ish, you know. So where do you get affirmation from all of those years? And what happened was I started becoming a professional and looking for affirmation in jobs, and worked myself to a frenzy only for someone to say great job, right? That's
Right.
trauma, you know. And then
Right.
you're dealing with racism and discrimination in the workplace, and as a woman of color, and always trying to, you know, let people know I belong here, you know. And it's just sometimes frustrating, but you understand it when you're able to help someone with that. We overcome by the blood of the lamb and the word of our testimony. Our trauma allows us to testify. Our trauma allows us to help somebody else chart a path and hopefully erase some weight and strain off of their lives. And if I can do that, then guess what? I'm hoping that God is pleased.
He is. He is so pleased. Let me tell you something. This is so therapeutic, just even for me. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And that's
Praise.
another reason why this project is so important to me, because it doesn't just help other women. I every week, Rochelle, I get something from one of these women that I didn't even know I needed.
Wow.
You know
Wow.
what I mean? And I'm
Wow.
52. So I've
Wow.
been through a lot of stuff, right? But even still, I get something every week that I didn't even know I needed. But God be knowing.
Mm-hmm.
He
He
know what we need when we need it. You know what I mean?
knows. He knows. He knows. And it's a blessing to share. Because I really hadn't talked about the colorism piece a lot. I wrote a book last October, a children's book, my first children's book, and it's called Stop Bullying Me. And I wrote that one because I do a lot of work in the bullying space, but I also kind of wrote it to slide in the conversation and start talking about what that really looks like, and how words really hurt, and how sometimes when we are hurt, we hurt people, and we just really have to be mindful of our actions and really not using our influence to intimidate other people and subsequently hurt other people. Words hurt. We always say sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt. I beg to differ. Words hurt.
They hurt.
They hurt real bad. And there are words that my family said over the years that still hurt. that, you know, loved ones have said and friends. Words hurt. And so we have to be careful with the words that we use, because if we use them haphazardly, we can really cause major damage to people that will take them a long time to unpack and deal with and heal from.
Yes, indeed. So let's talk about a 15-year-old girl in today's time who becomes pregnant. She has no support, one parent, and that one parent is not, so very similar to your situation. She doesn't have a church home. What do you tell someone that is in a situation like that? What do you say to this young woman?
Well, I say that you should maximize all of the people and the resources that are connected to you that want to help. Anyone that has assigned themselves to you, anyone that likes you, anyone that can help you, if it's a school, connect with them, because you will need an extension of what you either had as family or you have as family. You'll need an extension. It may be your school. It may be an organization. I know for me, there were a lot of organizations that really nurtured me. It was funny. And I'll go back to a couple other things. I was at a training when I was teaching many, many years ago. And we had to give our backstory. And I talked about how I played tennis as a child and I played flag football as a child. And they were like, wow, oh my God. Up in the, I was like, no, that was my neighborhood recreation center that gave me those experiences. I was in a pageant that my own mother didn't think I was going to win. In fact, she was like, I don't even know why you're going there, because you're not going to win. And that was the start of perseverance for me, my friend, because I came back as Little Miss Sunshine. And it's those organizations like the recreation center that you can connect with. I would say stay locked into education. If you don't,
Mm,
I say, if you're on this line and you're 15, or if it's someone you know, education was a key for me. I know so many people, and I work with business owners. So many people have been successful without degrees and without schooling, and I salute you. But for me, education was a key. It unlocked some doors. And the reality of the matter is, there are some opportunities that only education will get you in. There's some opportunities that only those letters will get you in. Now, you have a lot of other options, but education can open up some doors that just others can't. So for me, that's what it was. I stayed in school. I went to college. I went back to teach. The most rewarding thing was going back to teach at the elementary school that I had graduated from. And I'm
that's got to be a great feeling.
world of education. So I would say stay in school. Don't drop out, even if it gets hard. There's so many resources now that they didn't have that. When I was in school, I mean, credit recovery, special programs. I mean, and I say this, let the government help you if they can. Don't be out there on the island by yourself, please. I did. I stood on the shoulders of getting the food stamps, getting the assistance. And when I graduated from college, I gladly said, time is up. You guys have served me well. I can do this on my
And
own.
I'm good. And I'm
And
good.
and I'm
I
good.
I this is a little different than your journey when it comes to the education piece. So I just wanted to share from another perspective, because I agree with you, and I told my daughters who are both college graduates, and doing very well for themselves, and I told them that the education piece in today's society is almost a must. But um, you're looking at someone who got pregnant early in college, and I dropped out of college. So I never finished. I never got my undergrad degree, but I did go on to becoming director of benefits for one of the largest law firms in the country, the only Black girl who held that position with no degree, because I wasn't even qualified to have that role and to make 200 plus $1,000 a year in a salary. And I had no degree. So I do want women out there to know it is possible. It's very difficult, but because of my work ethic,
Yes.
because of my ability to develop and nurture and keep really good relationships, never burning bridges, and just understanding how important it was to always maintain a level of professionalism no matter what, whether
Yeah,
it's the person coming to pick up my trash, whoever it is. I was always very, very professional and open and cordial. And I was able to be very, very successful without the benefit of a degree. So there, it's possible. And I always like to groom young women to help them understand, if you're going to go this route, let me help you. Let me tell you a few things that you're going to need to know to climb the corporate ladder without that piece of paper. It's
absolutely.
doable, but it's very, very difficult in today's society. Very,
Definitely. Definitely.
very.
There's so many tracks that people can get on. I think the key is to find the track, get a mentor. I mean, there's so many mentorship opportunities out here now for
So
even
important.
12 and younger than the 15-year-old. I
Yep.
think if you connect with someone that can really sponsor you and undergird you and be willing to allow you to stand on their shoulders, that is the biggest blessing I could ever say you would have for
Yes,
your
indeed. Yes, it is. And if there's a young woman on here now listening who would love to have my support in that category because, maybe college didn't work out for you,
yeah, yeah,
I am always willing to help and talk to girls from that angle because that was my path. And
yeah,
who better to share that side of life than someone who did it? So,
yeah.
um,
And
listen,
my son is doing very well, and college wasn't for him. And I think as parents,
really?
you plot your children, you give them those options, and you say, okay, what works for you? He was that one that I had when I was 15, and college just didn't work. And we put him on the career track. He had a technical skill, and he did well. So what we want you to do, we just want you to be on a track so that
Be
someone can be with you and push you for success. So this is
yeah,
amazing. I pray
yeah.
God's blessing over your organization. I'm so excited to be connected, and I can't wait to continue to do the work with you.
I can't wait either. Are there any other amazing things that you'd like to tell those that are watching right now about what you're doing or what you're going to be doing soon, Rochelle?
Yeah, well, listen, one of the things that I understand is that a lot of times women are, they feel like they're in this compromising position because they're just struggling financially. And so a lot of times we are working, we're single mothers, and we don't understand the power of our dollar because sometimes, I mean, I grew up from an era where my mom was robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I wasn't taught financial principles and how to save your money and all of that. And so I've been on this quest the last few years, just really helping women understand the power of your dollar, how you can make a decision with your dollar, right? You don't have to buy certain things. You can move the economic stream with your dollar. And so as we are transitioning out of 2022, going into 2023, I'm going to be releasing one of my newest ventures, and that is God's Women Finish Rich. We're going to be talking about how you get to a place as a woman of God and how you can really be rich. So stay tuned for just different things that I'll be doing. I'll be doing a retreat at the top of the year, but I'm really excited about pointing to God's women and showing God's women how to leverage your dollar while you advance the kingdom and you enrich.
Listen, sign me up. I can't wait for that. That sounds super exciting.
I would love to
Um,
have you. I would love to have you. You'll be all in that, all in it.
yeah, sign me up. And I just want, people to know if how can they support your book? Are books still being sold? I want people to be able to support that.
Yes, yes. My books are all found on my website, successgeeks.com. My husband and I, we coach. So if you're a young entrepreneur on here and you want some coaching, just go to successgeeks.com. If you are already established and you just need some business win, go to successgeeks.com. We also have something that's called the Believers Millionaires Collective, where we're taking a group of believers who have the potential to become a millionaire. And we've been working with them for the last 9 months. And I'm telling you, they're getting access to capital. Their businesses are expanding and they're making God first as they do it. So we'll be opening up registration for that in November for 2023.
Yeah, someone on here says, hey, talk about the entrepreneur prayer on Mondays at 7 a.m. on Facebook and IG Live.
Oh yeah. So we pray. My husband and I pray for entrepreneurs. We've been doing it now for 6 weeks. We just was led of the Lord to lift up in prayer entrepreneurs every single Monday from 7 to 7:30, because we believe in the word of God that says the prayers of the righteous man availeth much power. And we know that to be an entrepreneur is not easy. It is not easy to just trust God. It's not easy to say, okay, my business is just as good as the other person down the street, or, how am I going to meet payroll? And so we have just been win for people, I'm guessing. At first we were like, okay, do we really need to do this? So many people are on live, but the testimonies that we're getting, people who are just like, listen, I'm almost going back to get a 9 to 5. And I got that win from the prayer. So that's what we do every single Monday on Facebook and Instagram.
I love it. And so what's the Facebook and Instagram page for those who may want to participate next Monday?
You can go to Rochelle Y. Wilson or Pastor CEO or Ishmael Wilson on Facebook or Rochelle Wilson on Facebook. Every single Monday from 7 to 7:30, we're praying for entrepreneurs and believing God for the best for each of you.
Yes, God. Thank you for those like you and your husband. I'm
Oh,
so super grateful. Listen, and for those of you who joined late and you want to know what we're doing with this project, I want to do some amazing things. We are going to be filming soon. I'm claiming it. We are going to be traveling to go and get the interview with Viola Davis. I'm claiming that too.
it's
And
done.
so yes, if you have a story that you'd like to share as part of this project, please go on my website, www.trauma2Triumph.com. You can email me, and that email address is info@trauma2Triumph.com. And we do need donations. You all, we have to get some filming done. We've got to get some brand and marketing done. I want to participate in a few conferences, and we want to set up our Trauma to Triumph booths everywhere where we can reach tons and tons of women. So in order to keep those things going, we do need donations, and you can donate now. Cash App is Trauma2Triumph. So Trauma2Triumph. This organization will be a nonprofit by the end of this year. So if you are concerned about that, you will still be able to claim it as a charitable contribution for the year of 2022. And yeah, so I'm so grateful for all of you who tune in every week. If you don't have Cash App dollars to share, please share your prayers with me. That is trumps everything. Prayer. I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in when there's numbers of us who are doing it all together, we can make things happen so much faster and on such a grander scale. So
Yeah.
prayer does work. I accept all prayers every single day. And I thank you all so much. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 8:30 with another amazing woman with an amazing story to share. Rochelle, thank you so much.
I love you. Thank you.
I love you too. And
I
you
love,
know we will be talking because we've got work to do.
yes, yes, I'm
Okay.
here. Yes. Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please follow, and this will be up on the YouTube channel later tonight. This entire episode will be up on the Trauma to Triumph YouTube channel if you want to check it out. Bye.